Hello, welcome back to my channel. So today I am going to be talking about just some books that I've read recently that I would like to talk about and give you guys like more of my thoughts about them, my rates, and just what I liked, what I didn't like, the characters, all that kind of good stuff. So let's keep it pushing, let's get this train on the tracks, and let's drop the beat. I have notes in front of me because low-key some of these books I read like weeks ago and I don't always remember people's names in books, so bear with me. The first book I want to talk about is a book that a lot of fantasy readers have loved and have rated nothing but 4s and 5s. I don't think I've seen any other like ratings, like any low ratings, anything below a 4 until I read the book. But keep in mind that I don't read fantasy. I mean I do, but I read like paranormal, romance, and like low fantasy. So I did a 24-hour reading vlog for this first book, and so if you guys want to see like me, like if you want to see my confusion like live, go watch that video. It's quite entertaining. So the first book I'm going to be talking about is The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. So let's just start with the rating first. I rated this book at 3.5 out of 5, and that's pretty good for me. Don't usually read books that are in the high fantasy area just because it takes a little bit more time for me to kind of cultivate like what the vision of the book looks like and understand like the characters and magic and all that kind of stuff in the book. And so there's a lot of elements to this book that I could not even put into this very quick review, but I'm going to do my best. So the book follows 3 characters essentially. The main character though is Eason, or I guess that's how you say her name, Eason. And it starts off kind of talking about like the end of the world and things like that. There are these people called Ragas, and they have these abilities, and so I like to kind of compare them to earthbenders from Avatar, and they have the ability to kind of like move the earth. Ragas are feared. They are considered dangerous, and so all Ragas who are able to, they get paired with a guardian, and these guardians are really there to kind of watch the Raga to ensure that everyone around them is safe from the Raga. So you have that like power dynamic there with that, but the whole book follows this character through different stages of their life. It kind of just shows how, well, with the character, each stage they go through, there's just a little bit deeper of a story there, and you kind of get like additional characters involved. You kind of see like the journey that they take and they go through to kind of get to the end of the story, which is kind of like the beginning of the story. And I don't even think this makes sense what I'm saying right now, but what I liked about the book, I really loved the romance in this book because it is just nothing like I've ever read before. It was a poly romance. It was super interesting. And in my mind, when I was thinking of, I can't remember his freaking name. Now that's the other guy. When I think about him, I think about that guy. If I could find him, I'm gonna put his picture somewhere around here, but I think about him. But yeah, so the romance was really sweet. It was really interesting. From what I could imagine in my mind, I like the picture that I got in my head of like the world. I guess I kind of do think of like Rubble and Ruins in that kind of like world. So I mean, it was good. The plot twist they all say is like in your face, but to me it was not in my face. Like I had an idea of what I thought it was at the end, but I had to verify with people who read the book to make sure. And again, it's not a book that I can just fly through and they'd be like, oh my gosh, I got it. That book took me a while to read. It took me a couple of days, and even after the fact I still had to let it marinate before I could really like understand it to an extent. So I did enjoy it. It was fun to read the book. I had a good time reading it. Kind of. I just wish that I felt the way that everyone else felt when they read this book, but you know, I think I have to work my way up to high fantasy, which is nothing wrong with that. And I love the way that N.K. Jemisin portrayed Eason, and for those who read the book, you know what I mean by that. For those who haven't read the book, I'm not gonna spoil it for you. So moving on, I read Take a Hint, Nanny Brown finally, and let me tell you, this book was perfect. Like I can't think of a single thing I disliked about it. I really can't. So Take a Hint, Nanny Brown follows, it's by Talia Hibbert. It follows Zafir and Danica, and oh my gosh, I ate that book up. When I tell y'all I opened it and devoured it, that book had no chance with me. Like, it stood no chances. So it follows Danny, who is a professor at a college. Zafir is a security guard at the school in one of the buildings that Danica works at, and they're like colleague friends. So Danny gets stuck in an elevator and is doing a fake drill, and Zafir takes safety very serious for a reason, and so he treats it like it's real. He goes and like saves her, and people are eating it up. They're taking pictures of her and Zafir, and they're just like, oh my gosh, it's so cute. So it follows him, and so Zafir is trying to get his non-profit, and he's trying to get that like started up and like, you know, moving forward, but it's kind of stagnant right now. Yeah, so his charity is doing well after this picture is circulating around the internet, and Danny was like, well, we can just pretend to be a couple for the sake of your company, well, for the sake of your charity. And so he's like, are you sure? She's like, yeah, I'd do anything for you, like, you're great. So this love story really just kind of follows Zafir, who suffers from anxiety. He's an ex-rugby player, and he has suffered a loss in his life as well, a very big loss. And you have Danny, who has some past that she's trying to heal from, and all the while she's like this strong, independent woman, and she's just like calling the shots on everything. And like Zafir and Danny ground on each other, I feel like, and the two of them together kind of healed each other without even doing it like on purpose. It just kind of naturally happened. And one of the things I love about this book is that the conflict in this book is so real. Honestly, there's conflict in your life that has no fault of anyone that's involved in the relationship, and this book was a very good example of that. The way Talia addressed mental health in this book for me was paramount, because at the time of me reading this book, it was like 2 weeks ago, I've been dealing with some stuff myself. It was a line in that book, and I can't remember what it said, but it just made me think about everything else in my life that's going right. And I was like, wow, there are things that are going completely wrong, but there are also things that are going perfectly fine, and I rarely give my attention to those things, and it made me feel like I want to, so I do that now. I feel like if you want a romance but you want something that's gonna actually maybe even teach you something, pick up this book. Okay, so the next book that I read was Simmer Down. I don't remember who it was by. Oh my gosh, by Sarah Smith. So I received this book as an ARC from NetGalley, and I read it really fast. I think I read it in like a day or two, maybe. It follows this girl Nikki and this guy Callum. They both live in Hawaii, and Nikki's father passed a year prior to this, and her mom actually run a food truck, and Callum is like this new guy in town who is with his brother also running a food truck. Well, the dilemma is that Nikki has like the same spot she parks at every single day, and you have to really earn that spot. And she gets there one day for work, and Callum is parked in her spot, and she's just like, oh hey, like I just want to let you know, like there's like a Hawaiian rule where, you know, you don't park in people's spots, kind of thing. And he just like instantly was like, who are you talking to? Not me, because I'm parking wherever I want. Like literally this man, I was like, wow, you didn't have to do her like that. Like I feel like you're a stranger and she's being so nice to you, and you just... So you follow Nikki and Callum pretty much fighting. They fight every day at work, and so like their customers actually enjoy the conflict. They enjoy the fighting. They're recording it, uploading it online. They're going viral at this point, and business is booming for both of them. They both have great food trucks, very different food, and so there's like a Hawaiian food truck festival every summer in May, and they make a deal. Whoever wins the food truck competition gets to park here. The loser has to go find somewhere else to park. I mean, it was cute. I will say I didn't care for Nikki's character, because there was a part in the book where she caught Callum in a situation and she just jumped to assumptions, jumped to conclusions without ever asking him. And I read a lot of romance and I watch a lot of romance. I don't care for situations where like something happens and they walk away. Because if it's me, if I catch you kissing somebody else or hugging someone else and I don't know who the person already is in your life, I'm not gonna just, oh my gosh, I trusted you, why did you do this to me? I'm not doing that. Like, I'm gonna be like, so who is she? Like, I'm gonna ask you, because I don't know. And I know everyone's not like a good communicator, but I just don't care for romances where one of the people in the relationship sees their partner doing something or saying something or it looks suspicious, and then they just run away and then they break up or they just don't talk. Like, that is annoying to me. Like, I hate that. I'm a very communicative person. I like to talk about everything. So like for me, it's just the lack of communication in this book was really hard to get past. And so I gave this book a 3 out of 5 stars. So next was Pensive by Trevina Terry. Trigger warning for this book. There is torture in this book, BDSM material, so like dom, sub, submissive type things. There is talk of domestic abuse, and I believe that's it. Again, like I always say, read this book with caution if you're gonna read it. But I gave this book a 4 out of 5 stars, and I'm gonna tell you why. So pretty much this book follows Asa and Elise. Asa, so he's a bodyguard during the day, he's a contract killer by night, and he actually contract kills people who commit sexual assault crimes. If the government doesn't put them away, he deals with them personally. And Elise is a writer. She is a professor adjunct, so she's working to become a professor, and she is a writer, and she is getting out of a relationship, and she just kind of wants to like go find herself. So she lives in Miami. She leaves Miami to go to Chicago for a week, and in Chicago she is going for a convention. The hotel she's staying at is where Asa is a bodyguard. He's there for the night, and so they lock eyes one day, and like they are just hooked. So they end up meeting again in a bar, and Asa like kind of slides on his girl, and he's like giving her to work, and she's like here for it. Like, he wants to wine and dine her pretty much. They come up with like this deal to date for 4 days with no strings attached. They're gonna date, and after the 4 days are over and she goes back to Miami, they're not gonna speak ever again. That's the plan. Elise is kind of like a prude in a sense. Like, she's never done anything, but she's always fantasized about doing certain things in the bedroom, and Asa kind of just like helps her explore that because he is a dom, and he explores that with her, and she's just like hooked. Let's talk about things I didn't like. There really was no plot. I was thinking about that book and I was like, wow, it was so good. I was like, what was the point? Because there really was no plot there. It was just a bunch of events happening. Also, in the book, if you're gonna read it, just be prepared to see the word cinnamon eyes like on every page, because every time he saw her, he would say those cinnamon eyes, and she would say those chocolate eyes, and it was just the weirdest thing. There was a thing I didn't care for. So I'm really big on like sexual health, and I have no problem talking about that, but in this book there was a moment where they both were talking about their sexual history, and I think Asa's like, are you clean? And she's like, Elise is like, well, yeah, are you clean? I have a big problem with saying, are you clean? Because it implies that anyone who isn't clean is dirty. And when it comes to sexual space, I don't like when authors write things like, are you clean? Because that language just, it can be very hurtful and harmful to some of your readers. There are other ways to talk about that. So I did like that she put that, you know, Trevina put that in her story, that they actually had that conversation before they had sex. That was great. I just didn't like the usage of words, are you clean? Because it implies that those who are not negative for everything are dirty, and we don't want to make readers feel like something's wrong with them, you know what I mean? So other than that though, the book was really good. So that's so far some but not all the books that I've been reading recently, but these are a few of the ones that I want to talk about most because they were the most interesting, I think, that I've read. I am currently reading You Must Not Miss, and it's a magical realism / fantasy young adult novel, and it's interesting. I've never read anything like it. It's pretty much this girl, her mom's an alcoholic, her dad cheated on her mom with her mom's sister, and so she creates this, she has a journal where she writes in every single day, creates this world in this journal, but the world ends up coming to life in her backyard. She can go in the shed and travel to near and come and go as she pleases, but it turns out that near might be dangerous. I don't really know yet. I'm halfway through the book and nothing crazy has happened so far, but there have been points in this book that I do not like, that I actually have hated, because I'm gonna go into depth in that on my August wrap up, because that book I have lots to say about. But just know it's really freaking weird. Like the premise of the book is super interesting, and I love the idea of like a make-believe world that someone wrote on a book and it came to life in their backyard. But some of the things that the author put in this book, it was kind of disgusting. It was nasty and I didn't like it, and it made me feel uncomfortable. So I'm pushing through it, but we'll see how this book turns out. So anyway, I made it to the end of this video. Please put a notebook in the comment section below. Don't forget to hit the bell so that you guys can be notified of when I upload a new video, and I will see you on my next one. Bye.